Hi, I'm John deBary, and this is the final episode of 2022 of Drink What You Want, otherwise known as the Festivus episode. So after the drink, we're gonna have airing of grievances, and I did screenshot all your comments, so better be ready for what's coming to you.
It's a Festivus miracle!
But first, we're gonna make a lovely, warming but still cold cocktail called the Tompkins Square. It's a cocktail that was created by my friend Michael Klein. It's one of my favorite drinks from where I used to work, PDT. And it's kind of like a brown, boozy, little fruity cocktail that should get you through your holiday season just swimmingly. It is a riff on a vieux carré. A vieux carré is a old New Orleans cocktail that refers to the vieux carré as like Old Square, the French Quarter of New Orleans. The original drink has rye whiskey, has vermouth and some bitters, and it's kind of this like cool kind of hybrid French-American cocktail. And my friend Michael did this really awesome riff on it, and he did say it was okay. So before you yell at me for stealing someone else's recipe, I asked Michael, and he was very happy for me to share it. I will say that there are some cool special ingredients that you should not be daunted that you can't find. They're worth finding out. If you can't find them, maybe ask me, and I might be able to give you some suggestions for some substitutions, but it's worth finding them out, and we're just gonna go through each one of them because they're really fascinating to talk about. The first one is kirschwasser, which is German for cherry water, which is a cherry eau de vie. Eau de vie is French for water of life, and water of life got sort of like smushed through Gaelic and then back to English to make the word whiskey. So that's where the whiskey comes from. It's the Gaelic word for water of life. And then the next ingredient is fairly straightforward. We've got rye whiskey. Rye whiskey is a kind of cousin sibling to bourbon. Next up is Maurin Quina, which is a French fortified wine. It's kind of similar to vermouth, but it's not perishable like the way vermouth is. Then we've got allspice liqueur, which is pretty much what the name implies. It's an like allspice, clove. It gives a really good baking spice element to a lot of cocktails if used sparingly, and we will use this sparingly in this drink, and I will show you how to use just the right amount. And then moving along with the bitter herbal liqueurs, Bénédictine is made by monks in Normandy. A lot of old, like classic cocktails use Bénédictine. Lastly, we've got bitters, Peychaud's Angostura. Peychaud's has kind of an anise cherry element. It's a classic ingredient like a Sazerac or a lot of like old New Orleans, like Frenchy kind of cocktails. And then Angostura is from the Caribbean. It's got a lot of clove and gentian. Another, just like, if you buy one of these, you'll be using it extensively in your bar cart because many old school cocktails, many new school cocktails rely on Angostura for that little hit of like spice and bitterness that like kind of similar to the way salt works in a lot of like cooking ingredients where like you add salt to a dish and it becomes more flavorful but it doesn't become like salty. So even if you don't like bitter things, using bitters in cocktails is a really good way to make them taste better. So don't be scared.
At the Festivus dinner, you gather your family around and tell them all the ways they have disappointed you over the past year.
When you're making a drink, you always want to build with like the smallest amount of measure up towards like larger amounts so that you're kind of building the risk as you go up. So if you mess it up, you're kind of risking less. So that's just sort of like the general orthodoxy of making cocktails. So with that in mind, we are going to start with the Angostura bitters. Just do 1 dash of Angostura, 1 dash of Peychaud's. Don't skip on the bitters, but also don't overdo the bitters because it's all about balance. Next up is the Bénédictine. We are using a 1/4 ounce, an ounce of rye. And the classic drink this is based on is more or less the same structure. It's just instead of the quina, we've got vermouth, and then instead of the cherry brandy, we have like literal cognac. So if you want to make the old school vieux carré, look it up because you'll probably need to refer to that, but very similar. Ounce of Maurin Quina. Lastly, we've got cherry eau de vie. This is made from a producer in the Pacific Northwest, so it's actually American product, even though it's called kirschwasser, which is German. So kids, do you want to hear about my bar not my bar, but do you want to hear about the bar where I used to work for 5.5 years, where I learned this drink? It's called PDT, it stands for Please Don't Tell. It is a little secret speakeasy, neo-speakeasy that's hidden inside of a hot dog restaurant called Criff Dogs on St. Mark's Place. I started working there, I had no experience. My friend from college was one of the opening bartenders there, and I was like, can I work at your cool bar? And he was like, yeah, why not? But like within a month, I actually got my picture and my name in the New York Times. And so I was gonna go to law school, and I was like, nope, I'm doing this instead. We stirred our drink, got the dilution, and now the very, very judicious application of the allspice dram that I mentioned before is going to come into play. When cocktail recipes refer to a rinse in a glass, this is what they're talking about. A lot of times you can just take the thing, pour it in the glass, and then like do the, the rinsey thing, but let's get a little bit fancier. So you take a little spray bottle. At home I use like a misto, for like olive oil. And then you have your bottle prepared, you have your glass. If you want it to be chilled, do that first. And it's also very fancy when you're at a bar and you're like this cool bartender and people are watching you make drinks and you're like, it's very impressive. And it's just the right amount. So it's like this perfect little haze of this very intensely flavored spirit. Give yourself a pour. One little tweak I did from Michael Klein's original recipe was when it came out in the summer, on the summer menu, we had fresh cherries from the farmer's market. It is now December, so fresh cherries are probably less accessible for most of you. So I'm going to use one of the best cocktail ingredients in the entire world, Luxardo cherries.
And is there a tree?
No, instead there's a pole. Requires no decoration.
All right, time for airing of grievances. I thought I was kidding, but I'm not. I actually know a lot of people don't have a lot to grieve about, but if you are bothered by a man wearing lipstick or people chewing loudly on the internet, you can just keep scrolling. For everyone else, see you next year.
No offense, but this holiday's a little out there.
Kramer, you can't go. Who's gonna do the feats of strength?
Feats of strength. Smash the like button. Subscribe. Get the full recipe at food22.com.
I find your belief system fascinating.